Facebook. Hello, Facebook Live. Hello, YouTube. It's Marilyn Devonish here from transformationstn.com. And the word, and I think this is the word that I've been looking for the last couple of weeks. However, I'm going to, of course, sit with it and explore it in more detail and see what else comes to mind. But I'd say the last 4 to 5 weeks have been very interesting. Unusually for me, I was actually unwell. And of course, everybody gets sick. However, in my world, even if I get something really bad, normally within 24 to 48 hours, I'm all good. Like, I could speak to a friend on Monday and be like, hello. And then they'll ring back on Tuesday. I'm like, hi. And they're like, weren't you sick yesterday? Like, you sounded like you were dying. And I'm like, yeah, that was yesterday. This is now. So it's very unusual for me to be sick for any length of time. And I actually was recently, not sort of death's door. I was still out doing stuff and all the rest of it, but I just know I was not feeling myself, and rather than try and just kind of rush through that, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to sit with it. It is what it is. And I could feel that there was something beyond the physicality of that which also needed to be looked at. Also been in what I would call introspection mode, in terms of, okay, because a couple of things have happened recently, one of which has really annoyed the heck out of me, and it was something that I wanted to do this weekend. Because at the time I needed to commit to doing it, I couldn't backfill with certainty and commit to it. I just had to kind of go, no, I can't do it. And so that has made me kind of sit and think about my life as well, in terms of, hold on a minute, should I not now be at the stage where I can do what I want to do, when I want to do it, however I want to do it? And clearly that's not the case if I've had to kind of go, can't commit to this thing so early. So it's been interesting on a number of fronts. And then today I was watching Super Soul Sunday, the Oprah interview, and talking about a woman who's made a massive impact in the world. Yesterday, and I think this was the kicker for it actually, I was sitting down going through one of these booklets. It's the Pearson-Mar type indicator. So I do archetypal profiling, archetypal branding, both for the individuals and for organizations. So I'm going through, because I'm going to design a quiz about helping you identify where you are on your archetypal journey, of which there are 8 stages. And it's a big part of where my journey started. I didn't know it at the time. In October 2000, I didn't start doing the archetypal stuff until 2005. But I remember looking at the archetypes didn't actually mean anything to me. They're based on the work of Carl Gustav Jung and are the basis for many of the personality profiles like the MBTI that we see today. So the archetypes in and of themselves didn't mean anything to me until I actually sat down and did the profile test. However, the archetypal journey was like, oh my God. That's exactly what happened to me, because it starts with, hearing the call and having a sense of discomfort and knowing that if you choose to, you are destined for something more, something different. It doesn't even have to be something greater. It's just different to what you're doing. So when I was studying to be a chartered accountant, I still had a sense this is not really what I want to do, but because I don't know what my other choices are, I feel like my hands are tied. And so I've started, so I finished. And I remember at one point on the when I was doing my personal development training in October 2000, and somebody said, oh, what do you do? And I said, I'm studying to be a chartered accountant. I'm doing the ACCA. I've got 4 more papers to go and then I'll be qualified. She looked at me and said, I can't imagine you being an accountant. And number one, I didn't take it as a compliment. I was really quite angry about that. And I basically said, well, I've started, so I'll finish even if it kills me. And when I heard myself say those words, I was like, oh, that's a bit deep. And then I looked at the state I was in back then, and I had, and the health problems when they started before I went on that path. However, they weren't helped by what I was going through and all the rest of it. And I was like, oh my God, I wonder if those words have any meaning over and above just blurting them out. So I do remember that distinctly. I remember the anger, because I put so much time and effort and money into it, and I'd given up what was for me a very good job working at an investment bank in the city to go back to study. So I felt the anger. However, I also heard the words that I spoke, and it was kind of like a wake-up call. And so when I saw the archetypal journey about the call, being called to do something greater, having to step into the unknown, crossing the threshold, the dark night of the soul, yada, 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 it all made perfect sense. And so I think last night, because I spent probably 2 or 3 hours just kind of doing some research for this, thinking about how to structure the quiz in a really simple way, yet a way that's going to deliver the result that people are looking for and give them some interesting information. And so I think also that whole thing about going through the journey again, I also found some of my old notes, and that in and of itself was fascinating, because there was an exercise that we had to do where we charted like the chapters of our life, and just reading that back, because people often say, I can't believe when you say that you used to be really quiet, you're really shy, you're lacking confidence, you had low self-esteem. They actually can't believe that I'm describing myself. And when I read back through those notes, I'm like, oh my God, this is just amazing. Because and there are people whose names, I looked at them last night and thought, I barely remember who you are. And then there are people that I'm still connected to this day who I charted in that. And I was like, yeah, they're still actually a part of my life, and I still reference them to this day. So that was all really interesting last night doing that. And I think all of that, particularly with the archetypal piece, has culminated in giving me a bit of clarity. And the clarity I had today was, and when I say this, let me preface this by saying this has got nothing to do with self-confidence and self-esteem. Sorted, we're all good. But the word I had today, I felt insignificant. And let me just tell you what that is. And when I say it's nothing to do with self-confidence and self-esteem, let me tell you, and trust me when I tell you, I know that I am brilliant. I know that I have information and knowledge and wisdom, sometimes I think beyond my years and beyond the amount of time I've been on this planet. And I know that I have a way of, number one, taking that on board, and then number two, delivering that back to people in a way that they get it, in a way that they are enlightened, in a way that they are empowered. So it's got nothing to do with self-identity. This is kind of almost like the next, how can I say, the next tier, the next layer, the next level, where I'm looking at what I'm doing. I'm like, the impact that I'm making in the world is insignificant. I'm not making an impact. I'm not. It's just tiny. In the grand scheme of things, it's absolutely nothing. And there's an equation that sometimes people talk about where they will say, you can measure the impact that you're making in the world, you can measure the value you bring to people's lives by the amount of people that you're touching. When I looked at that, I was like, do you know what? In the grand scheme of things, I might as well pack up my silver suitcase and go home. Because I look at some of my workshops, there's like 12 people on there. Now, those 12 people will be saying, oh my God, this is the best workshop I've ever been to. Why isn't the whole world here? That's cool. So yeah, I've impacted 12 lives. And, I believe in the ripple effect, always have done. Well, no, not always have done for the past 18 years. Let's just get it straight. My brain's like, liar. So it's like, all right. So I believe in the ripple effect. So I know those people will also go out and they will share some of that wisdom and knowledge with other people, and that will ripple onto them. But in the grand scheme of things, if you're going to tell me that there's an equation that says you can measure the contribution you make to the world by the number of people you're impacting, then my contribution is like almost zero. And that was actually quite depressing in a way. And it's like, oh, that's kind of deep. And it just really kind of made me kind of sit and think about, okay, so what am I going to do about that? How do I change that? And where do I go from here? Because clearly what I'm doing in terms of the way I want to do it, it's not working. It's not. It can't be. For me to be looking at the numbers, looking at the metrics, looking at the way that people describe contribution, truly, in this moment, what I am doing appears to be insignificant. And I know I've got a lot more unpacking of this to do. I know I've got a lot more thinking around it to do. I know I'm not done with it. I'll probably write a blog about it later on this week, because I'm sure the ideas will continue to crystallize in my mind. But that's my hiya, Cowfish. I hope you're feeling better, my dear. But that's the thought that crystallized in my mind today. It's like, what you're doing at the moment and the way that you're doing it appears to be insignificant. And I'm like, whew, I'm going to sit with that. I'm going to mull it over. I can't deny it, because actually, if the truth of it is, and the way the how can I know this is going to sound really weird to somebody who's never experienced it, because how can I put it? I can't say it in any other way that won't make me sound a little bit bonkers. But you know, of course, oh my God, the value of coaching. I will speak to my coach about it later on this week. However, in that respect, because I know when I write the post, I'm sure I'm going to have some very well-meaning people offering me some psychological insights. I'm like, trust me when I tell you I'm good, in terms of the people that I'm talking to, and the bit that made me sound a bit crazy in terms of talking to myself, because there are times where it is like my brain, my mind, my consciousness is outside of me, and it speaks back to me. And so it's like I have a full-on coaching conversation with myself, but not with myself. And so that's one of the moments I had today where the word came to mind as I thought about the archetypal journey and the call. And then I had one of those out of consciousness conversations where like my brain is outside of me but reflecting back to me, and it said it was kind of like yeah, that's true, isn't it, Marilyn? I was like well, and I'm trying to sort of justify it and squirm out of it, but in the end I had to just go, look, I'm going to put my hands up. You're right, it's true, in terms of what I'm doing, the way I'm doing it, the number of people I'm reaching. And I guess if I was going to talk in accountancy terms, you might talk in terms of ROI. Now, for me in this context, ROI isn't just about the money, although that's an important part of it. Trust me when I tell you, that's all good. In terms of that should be really high up in the equation. And for me, there's also a piece about this in terms of number of people impacted. That's what really started this whole train going, in terms of I'm looking at a number of people I'm impacting going, this is nothing. What am I doing? Why am I even bothering to do what I do? Should I just pack up and go home? And also then the level of satisfaction I get from that. Now, thankfully, I get a rush with every single person I help. So even if I happen to be queuing in the supermarket, as I was I wasn't queuing, I was actually walking, and I could see a woman who was a little bit shorter than me trying to get to the big yogurt pots on the top. So I sort of stopped, and I'm sure, you know, I'm not necessarily thinking about how I look, but I just come in. It was a really hot day. It was one of the days where it's like 29 degrees. So I'm wearing my sunglasses, got my dreadlocks, and so I walk into the supermarket. And because my sunglasses are seeing glasses, it's actually better for me to keep them on inside the building. So I'm having them on. So I'm guessing I potentially looked a little bit intimidating. But I walk up to this little old lady. I said, "Are you all right? Is there anything I can help you with? Do you want me to get one of the yogurt pots down for you?" So she looks at me, she looks at the yogurt pot, she went, "Oh, could you?" But then she says, "But I'm looking for I don't want the fat-free one." So now I'm giving a whole masterclass in yogurt. So I'm like, well, the one with the pink label, that's one which is fat-free. But I said, in my opinion, I agree with you, it tastes a little bit flat. This is the one. And then I'm explaining about the different carton sizes, and I'm saying to her, but let's not just go for the ones at the front. Let me reach for the ones at the back, because that's the ones who've got the longer sell-by date. So we have this whole little yogurt masterclass. And so we then decide, you know, what size does she want, which pot is she going for, and we have this whole thing. And so I walk off and she's happy. That for me is amazing, because it's like, oh cool, I've helped someone today, and they've had an experience of kind of making their life easier. I get a rush from that. So I think I'm really lucky that it's not just about the numbers, but the fact I am feeling a level of discomfort around the numbers and how low they are means, I think, that I'm getting to the stage where, and I don't know how much longer that's going to be okay for. So this is all, you know, and it really is, it kind of started the kind of landing and hitting me at around about 4:20 today. What time is it now? It's 7:36. So let's just say the last 3 hours. So it's still unformed, but that's the first piece of it. And when I look at it in terms of going back to the archetypal journey, the archetypal profile, I'm like, oh Lordy, here we go. Hold on for a fast ride, because it feels like the call, where you're being called to do something else. So let me just, if you've never heard of the journey, let me just give you a quick nutshell in terms of how it played out in my life previously. I was studying to be a chartered accountant, but I knew there was something more that I wanted to do, or something different. Had no idea what that could be, and I would never have in a million years guessed that it would be coaching, training, therapy, hypnotherapy. I didn't even know what those things were, but I knew there was a sense of discomfort with what I was doing. When I discovered personal development, you're asked to kind of step over the threshold. And the threshold means that you step into the unknown. So you need a particular archetypal energy to help you with that. If you survive and don't run back to the call, you then kind of transition through that journey. So now, you get some challenges coming up. And I think the challenges are designed to make you go, do you really want to do this? Are you sure? And it almost feels like you're battling demons. If you make it kind of beyond that, you get to a point where you're like, what happened? And you're sort of in, there's a movie called The Abyss, and I think the visual for The Abyss is absolutely perfect for how you feel, where you're looking, and in that visual, there's just, they're underwater, and there's just blue everywhere. It's just above you, below you, to your left, to your right, beneath your feet. It's just this expanse of space, and you're almost like, I don't know. And again, at that point, you could go, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. And you could scramble back to the call and jump at the other side of the threshold and just stay there. But eventually you kind of make it, if you continue on the journey, you sort of make it round a little bit further. And you get to the point where you have the sense where you're now slaying the dragons, let's put it that way, because the archetypes is quite an old thing. And once you start slaying the dragons, there's this sense, this is where you get into transformation mode, where the person you were at the start of the journey is no longer the person you were. And if you've enjoyed any blockbuster movies of our era, of our time, starting with Dorothy and those red slippers, and probably way beyond that, if you really sit and study them, and I have, you see the story all the time. Luke Skywalker, Neo in the Matrix, Neo sitting in his dingy little apartment hacking computers for cash, and he gets a message on the screen which is a call to do something greater than he is doing at the moment, something different. He has to step into the unknown and meet these crazy people who are talking about this thing called the Matrix. He has some challenges, and the challenges are often within him. He has to, he goes to see the seer, who actually doesn't give him good news. She doesn't give him the reassurance that he's looking for. So he's called to find that within himself, and there's this kind of battle going on, both internal and external, saying you could pull Neo out and put Luke Skywalker in, where there's the scene where he's trying to lift something out of the bog with his mind, and he's like, I can't do it, and Yoda kind of gives him some words of wisdom, but again, he's in that internal battle where he's been called to be more than, greater than he is, and he has to believe he can do it first. So you find any story and you can map it on the archetypal journey, particularly Star Wars, because that was a deliberate mapping across. And eventually you get to the point where the struggle, the journey, the disappointments and all the rest of it makes sense, and it's almost like a sense of atonement, where you're like, you get the aha moments, you get the light bulb moments, you're like, okay, it's all coming together. And this is where you then get back what I call a sense of lightness, a sense of joy. And eventually, after you've been through the final stages, you return, as they say, to the kingdom with your gifts, and you bring those gifts to the world. And so for me, starting with being called to be something other than a chartered accountant, going through that whole stage, the gifts that I returned to was basically encompassed in the name transformation, where I then kind of return to the world, return to the kingdom with these new skills, which I've been in the world doing for the past 18 years, and very happily so. And as I wrote this today about 20 past 4, I was like, oh God, is there another archetypal journey coming here? And I'm almost like rolling my eyes, because I know what the journey can be like. But that's how it feels. And I don't know yet, just like I didn't know what I was being called to do back then and I think, the sense of discomfort probably started for me. It's difficult to say, actually, because I was in a difficult position with my relationship at that time. So that in itself was a whole other ball game in terms of discomfort. So I guess if I really kind of track it back, probably around 1998 was when I got that I should be doing something else, because at that time I was working as an administrator. And and so there was a kind of like, oh, there's something else, this isn't it. However, I didn't know what I was going to end up doing, but then so I ended up doing this thing that, and then just, as you know, I don't believe in coincidence. I think it was synchronicity that I just happened to have a conversation with someone who told me about NLP and gave me a telephone number when I was still studying to be a chartered accountant. It was just one of those random curveball conversations, and just that one phone call led to just opening everything up. So yeah, I feel like with everything that's happened, the recent disappointments, being really naffed off this weekend that I couldn't be where I wanted to be, because I hadn't organised and backfilled enough a few months ago to make it happen. I think all of this stuff just culminates into making me sit and go, what the hell is my life about? What the hell am I doing? That I can't just do what I want to do, go where I want to go, and be where I want to be whenever I want to do it. There's something wrong with that picture. And it really also comes down to the numbers and the impact. I didn't start off with a big number in my head. I really just started off wanting to help another human being in the way that I had been helped, to kind of, how would I describe it now? Somebody, actually, one of a kind of a client of mine, Kate Thomas, you might have seen the gorgeous, actually this would have been a nice one for today with the color of my top, but some of you might have seen the gorgeous jewelry. She makes the angel jewelry, and she said to me a couple of months ago, she says, Marilyn, you're like a beacon of light. And that was, and when she said it, I was like, oh, that made it, particularly in what I was doing at the time, I thought that actually is a really nice way to describe it. Thank you very much. So I know some people start with a number. They want to impact, I don't know, 1 million people or whatever it might be. This journey didn't start with that. This journey started with going, this is how low I felt. This is how close I was in terms of, actually, I'm a little bit of a coward. And I wrote a blog yesterday about it, actually, about the suicide thing. And I said in that part of the blog, it might actually sound tongue-in-cheek when you read it. The dialogue in my head about the rope and the hanging and the kind of the knife and the train. Go and read it. It will make sense when you read it. I wasn't being tongue-in-cheek. That's exactly the way the conversation played out. But I realized from that conversation I was a little bit of a coward in being able to go the next step and take it all the way home. So, you know, it's that. So I think it started with just like, look, I just want to help someone in the way that my life was turned around. So it was actually fine. And I even think somewhere along the line, probably wrote it in the year 2001, I wrote something about transforming, something like transforming hearts and minds, or my brain's like, no, you didn't say that. It was like transforming lives, one heart and one soul and one mind at a time. So back then, and that will be 17 years ago now, I've actually almost, you know, I talk a lot about speaking it into existence. I've actually almost put it out there that I want to do things one person at the time. And now I'm at a stage going, that's not enough. That's not enough for the world. And that's not enough for me. And maybe it's an age thing as well, because I sat down and was like, Jesus, I'm 50. What am I doing? And I think there was a moment where I thought about all of the wisdom in my head, the information that I carry, the stuff that I have, how do I put this without, I think the only way I can say it, and I don't want to sound morbid about it, I don't want to sound like, I can't say it without sounding real, like it's a Debbie Downer, but it's not, it's really not. And I probably won't even care when I die. But the way it comes to me at the moment is I don't want to die and take it all with me, because that is just such a waste. I think that's it. I think that's it. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I say it jokingly, but with a hint of truth, that I'm happy to live to be 150 as long as I'm fit and healthy and well, and I've got my physical, my mental, my emotional faculties around me. I'm good, because I'm actually a little bit nosy. I want to see how the world changes, and I'd like to, with some of the things, let's say, that Martin Luther King talked about, I'd love to see those dreams realized. However, I'm also fully aware that I've got friends who are no longer here, who were here 1 minute. One of my friends, Cal Malik, went out. We were chatting online, and he was running this group, and he went out one night walking up a hill stargazing, and he didn't come down the other end. He died. I'm like, what the hell? And he was just in the process of launching this group. Well, he'd launched it, but was in the process of, putting some teleseminars and webinars together. And he's here 1 minute and he's gone the next. And I actually remember seeing the post on Facebook from a family member. I thought it was a joke. So I didn't respond to the post. I backfilled and went to his actual page. And sure enough, there's just this outpouring. And I was like, oh my God. And I mean, Cal actually was a very big believer in, life and life after death and the spirit and the soul, all the rest of it. And I remember at one point going, Cal, if you're up there, can you tell me, are you living on? And are you making an impact still in a different way? But there have been so many of those moments, and he's just kind of one that springs to mind. And I think, oftentimes when I'm thinking about Cal, weirdly, one of his old posts will pop up on Facebook. But yeah, I think as I kind of articulate it now, because I said it, this whole thing hit me 3 hours ago. I think it's kind of, it would feel like a waste to leave this planet and have not to have helped make it a better place, knowing what I know and seeing the impact that I've made, albeit in a very small scale at the moment. Because I look at some of the problems on the world stage, I'm like, I could resolve that. I've done it. I've walked in, got people off the street who were killing each other, and within 4 minutes, problem solved. These people are hugging and kissing and breaking bread together, quite literally. And it's like, it's kind of easy, actually. And so I look at some of the big world problems, and I'm like, put me in a room with you, I could sort that out in like a couple of hours. And so it just feels wrong that I could leave this planet and take all of that information with me, and never get it shared beyond a handful of people here and there. A gang here, a local authority there, a handful of clients there, a small membership group here. That just feels completely wrong. It almost feels like, it's going to sound a bit weird, but it always feels like an insult to my soul to do that. And that said, it may be my soul's path this time round is to just do what I actually articulated a few years ago and change and transform one life, one heart, soul and mind at a time. But the Marilyn that I am now is no longer happy with that definition. I'm no longer happy with that. And in some respects, I'm no longer happy in this moment with the direction that my life is going. Because I'm like, am I really destined to just do things in a tiny way? And in some respects, have my life dictated to me rather than me dictating my life? No, I'm not. I'm not happy about it at all. So yeah, I have no idea what the next stage of this is. I know in an archetypal journey sort of kind of thing, that the call will come and get you regardless of what that is. And I genuinely don't know what it is. I really don't. So hopefully I'll watch this video back in I'm going to say a couple of weeks time. I'm like, oh my God. Actually, although to be honest with you, that's true. Because I answered the call in October 2000. And by December 2000, it had been answered. And by February 2001, I was living it already. So I went through the cycle really fast, because people can spend their whole lifetime on one archetypal journey. People can actually live a whole lifetime hearing the call and never answering it. so they don't even go on the journey. That's cool too, because you're in this life to choose the way you want to live it and how do you want to play it. And some people will go through like 20,000 journeys in one lifetime. So it all depends on who you are and what you're about. And I guess from a soul plan reading point of view, actually, good point. I'm going to go back and read my soul plan again, because I read it a couple of weeks ago, and there were a few things in there that resonated that didn't resonate when I first saw it in November 2013. If you're watching this in real time, it's now August 2018. So I am going to go back and read my soul plan again. And I went through the archetypal journey really fast last time, but it took me 32 years to get to that point. I had 32 years of unhappiness and discomfort before I answered the call, and then I was whizzed through it in like 3 months. No, that's a bit longer, isn't it? October, yeah. So let's just say 5, 6. Let's just say 6 months to just make it a clean number. So I know it can be fast. I'm really hoping that this time round it's a quick whiz around the archetypal profile, because I'm like, oh, I've been through enough already. I know, you know, and I'm not religious at all, but I could just hear the words in my head. God doesn't give you more than you can handle. I like to believe that is true, although the piece I wrote on suicide yesterday appears to be a juxtaposition on that. I actually don't think it is, and as I said in the piece, with regards to suicide, I'm not for it, I'm not against it, it just is. So if you go and read that blog, that will also make sense, as well as the kind of the dialogue about the rope and the knife and the train. So yeah, it's now Kalpesh, hi Kalpesh. Kalpesh says, but you know it's not insignificant. Measuring against you versus others is key. That's true as well. That's true. See, I can now hear Maya Angelou talking about Phenomenal Woman. If you've never seen her read that piece, you really should go and have a look. And that's weird, actually. I sat with a medium and a psychic a few years ago. Yeah, and he said you're gonna he said you're gonna do similar work to Maya Angelou, but the only difference is you'll not just be speaking the words, you'll be helping people to make those transformations. So I might go back and read that as well. As the guy called Tony, no, it wasn't Tony Stockwell. Tony Stockwell was a friend of his, but it was interesting, actually. So yeah, I could look at it like that as well. Yeah, but I was looking at it in terms of the metrics and the numbers, and in terms of who I'm impacting and what I'm doing at the moment, and it's not enough. It's not enough. It's not enough. And I know, as human beings, our next thing is like how, and the how isn't always our business. So at this moment in time, I've got no idea what the call is that needs to be answered. I've got no idea how I do any of this. The only thing I do know is the level of discomfort I'm feeling with the current situation. As I said, I know exactly what contributes into that. That for me is like, I'm clear on what pushed me there. But the fact it pushed me there, that's the bit now. It's like, okay, we're on another journey. And maybe actually that also tells me that I should definitely just do the quiz, create the quiz. It's going to be in a similar style to the Buffy boyfriend quiz. That was the warm-up, just to test the logic and the thinking and the algorithms that sit behind it. There'll be a similar thing to that, but maybe it's a push to go, actually this is important again, because the archetypes come and go. I haven't really played with the archetypes for a while. They show up sometimes on my workshops, but in their entirety as a product, as a thing, it's been a while since I've actually just looked at the archetypes, and so that could be an important piece. I'm always talking about Carl Jung. Been fascinated with Jung since I did A-level psychology when I was 18 years old and first came across the idea of synchronicity. So Jung has always been one of my favorites, and I know I call on him a lot in terms of ideas and thoughts and philosophies and understanding the world and the idea of the collective consciousness. However, in terms of just the product of the archetype, it has been a while since I've sat down. So I think this is definitely a push to take the idea that I had and make that into a reality. And I'm also being called to sit down and look at my life right now. and kind of go, are you happy with that? And the answer to that is no. I have no idea, however, what comes next. So I think it's going to be a case of watch this space in terms of where we go from here. I don't think this is although it sounded pretty morbid and a bit emotional in terms of the death thing, I don't really think this is going to be my last Facebook Live, although you never know in this world. I really do think I've got a lot of life left in me. However, the way that it just landed on me was, you want to get that out in a bigger way while you're still here. And I'm guessing also from what I've been told and from what I've sort of experienced in some of aspects of my work, you don't necessarily get to the other side and go, oh, that was so disappointing, because you just do what you did and you do whatever was, you know, mapped out at that time. But I know as a human being, and the human that is Marilyn Devonish sitting here right now, regardless of whether you let all that go when you cross the threshold, I would be disappointed. I would be disappointed if I were to leave this planet, and what I've done now is the extent of the impact that I've had. So, you know, I'm going to have to see what comes to mind in terms of ideas and thoughts and ways about a bigger impact, bigger reach, making more of a difference, getting this information sort of out into the world. And I know it's some of the stuff that because when I say to, when I've told people the story, one of the stories was, and it's the first time second time somebody's begged me. The first time was an endocrinologist. You couldn't believe that I wasn't in a coma and pretty much dead, so begged me to take thyroxine. But the second time somebody begged me not to do something was when I was working as a management consultant. I was going to go out on a project. We're in the project meeting. We're with the local authority. We're with the customer liaison team, or we're with the police. And the police said, we're not coming to the event. We recommend that you hire security, and we also suggest you get bulletproof vests. And good luck. So I went back and relayed that to my boss, and he was like, Marilyn, please don't do this. I really don't, because I was going to be only me. I was organizing the event, I was running the event, I was managing the gangs and managing the community who were at war with each other, and the police are saying they're too scared to go, and there's me, oh, I'll do it, it's all right. And so, you know, my bosses begged me not to do it, but I remember sitting at home going, it's going to be interesting. So the police are too scared to go. I understand why. The gang members, yeah, not that keen, but they'll probably show up. And the local community are afraid, but they're also going to show up because they've all made a commitment to be there in terms of the gangs. And you know, it was a 4-hour meeting. And by the end, but I remember sitting at home, mapping out the ideas, putting what I call the energetics behind it, and deciding on how it was going to be played out and how I would know that I'd been a success. And my idea was to have the gang members and the local community who they were currently terrorizing hugging. That's exactly what happened in 4 hours. People were just like blown away. They're like, how the heck? And the police came as well. And they were doing the handshakes and the hugs, and they were eating food with us. And when I looked around, I didn't have my camera with me. That's one thing I regret about the event. But I remember standing in the hall. I think we're in Haringey somewhere, standing in the hall, looking at the local councillors, looking at the police, looking at the gang members, looking at the people who lived on, it was a Campsbourne estate, looking at the people who lived on the Campsbourne estate, watching them. And I'd invited people to bring food. I said, if you cook, or if you have a national dish, because it's a really diverse community, I said, please bring something that we can share in and partake of at the end. And I remember looking around, everybody's eating together, my idea of breaking bread. And as I'm walking past, there's a little old lady looking up at a gang member who had, you know, as I requested, taken his hoodie down. And she's looking up at him and she says, oh my goodness, I knew your mother when she was growing up. And you've turned out to be such a lovely young man. And he's like 6 foot and she's like 5 foot nothing. And they're both standing in front of each other with a plate of food, eating. And I remember just walking past and hearing that conversation. And I looked at the whole room and I was like, and people are making such a meal about this. It was kind of easy. And so when I think about those moments where I've had virtually no time to prepare a lot of the times, and then no time, given a tiny bit of time to actually have the transformation happen. I'm like, yeah, doing this for a little room here and a little room, it's not enough, not enough. So yeah, that's it really. Just thought I'd share stream of consciousness for tonight as it's unfolding. I'll probably do some further videos around it for those of you who are interested in following the journey. Or I might just kind of appear out the other side and go, ta-da, guess what happened? I don't know yet, I don't know. But yeah, I really think it's a case of watch this space. It's kind of deep. I think I've got longer to live, don't worry. And even if I haven't, thank you all for everyone who, I want to thank everyone who supported me on this journey. I want to thank those of you who have participated in my craziness and my madness and joined me on my many experiments, because as you'll know, if you're on my e-newsletter list, I'm always experimenting. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. You have made the journey thus far worthwhile. So don't get that mixed up with anything else I'm saying. What I'm talking about now is the next phase. What I've done has been amazing. What I've done has been fantastic. What I've done, I've really enjoyed it. Loved every minute of it. And if I were drawing a line in the sand, having just come back from the Watford beach, that now is no longer enough for me. There's something else, but that does not take away from and diminish the journey thus far. It has been fantastic, and I could not have done it without the really kind of actually quite small group of people who are always there supporting me. Some of them are supporting me in terms of actually coming to events, booking on workshops. Some of them are supporting me in terms of sharing information about events and telling people about their experiences. And some of them are supporting in terms of the energy that they bring to conversations, such as this one, for example, because when I see their name pop up on my social media notification feed, I smile. So they might never have done a workshop, might never have supported me in that way. However, there's the energetics of having them around, and I'm not going to start naming people because no doubt I'll miss somebody out and then they'll be upset. But I can see a couple of them are actually watching this video at the moment. So that's all good. That's fantastic. Doesn't take away from any of that. It has been amazing. And I feel there's something else now. I just don't know how at the moment to make it happen isn't the right word, because a lot of these things, when I really look at it, I didn't make them happen. It just appeared that I was in the right space at the right time, doing the right thing in the right way, or talking to the right person, yada, yada, yada. However, I have no idea yet how that is going to be co-created. And I think that's part of the uncomfortable part of the archetypal journey, where you just don't know and you almost can't predict sometimes. And that's where that sense of discomfort comes from. That's where the sense of also being in the abyss comes from. And of course, you know, whatever the challenges are that come with that. So yeah, cool. So thank you all for watching my random musing, which really was a stream of consciousness as it came into my head and out my mouth. Okay. Sometimes that's what life's about. And as you all know anyway, I'm not big on scripting anyway. Normally my Facebook lives are just, here, put the camera on high, what we talk about today. And this was actually even more so in terms of that, because I might even go back and watch. I never watch my Facebook lives again. I'm like, yeah, whatever, I said it now, next. But I actually might go back and watch this one just to hear some of the things, because I'm pretty sure, because there are things I hadn't yet articulated in my own head that came out of my mouth. So I might actually go, what did I say about that? We'll see. Yeah. So watch this space. You guys in my membership group will know exactly how this pans out. We'll probably do some stuff around this, because there's some things I'm going to break down about it thus far, because you might find it useful, particularly if any of the parts of this journey resonate with you. So you'll definitely get to hear about it, and we'll see how we roll from there. So wishing you all a fabulous morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where in the world you are residing at the moment. actually, for those of you who are joining me for my first global, well, we had the first one was a year ago, where I did a global live stream, and then I did a piece on Tuesday just to test out the technology that I want to use, and that was fantastic. So thank you for everyone who joined me for that. And in September, I'm going to really roll out the idea. Actually, that's probably part of it as well. Now I'm saying it out loud. I'm rolling out the idea of doing video webinar trainings online. So it's going to be kind of using a private platform, so not on Facebook Live, and so I can run the PowerPoint in the way I would if I was in the training room. You guys can be there either just watching. There's an opportunity for you to join us via audio if you want to speak. There's also an opportunity for you to join us by video if you want to actually, we see each other. Or you don't have to do any of that. You can just be typing as you type in the chat the way you would on, let's say, a Facebook Live. And so that rolls out next month. So maybe actually that's part of the plan as well, to not just rely on who can get to Watford on a particular day, but let's just offer training in a different way, and people from all over the world can take part. And of course, if they can't take part live, they can watch the recording. So maybe inadvertently, even though that's been a completely different track, as I'm kind of just saying it now, I'm like, well, maybe that's part of the way of increasing reach and impact, is offering and using the technology that is around nowadays, which is just superb, to do that. So yeah, we'll see. Well, thank you so much for watching me. Love to hear your thoughts about it as well. Where are you in terms of, if you know about the archetypal journey, where are you on yours at the moment? And if you don't know, look out for the quiz, which will be coming probably in the next couple of days, because that can help you shed some light on it as well. Cool. Anyway, catch you all later. I'm totally hungry now, having been at the beach all day. I need food, I need food, I need food. So I will catch you later. Thank you so much for watching, and talk to you soon. Bye.